Hi, you guys, it's Jerusha coming to you on a Friday night, November, I think it's the 18th. Not sure. Here, oh, my watch. I don't have my watch on. Don't like that. Actually, it's fine. But the Apple Watch is really comfortable. Yes, it's Friday, November 18th. I just had a really nice conversation with someone, and I also saw one of my new viewers, beautiful soul, to her. I think she's awesome, and she watched one of my old videos where I started watching it because I'm like, oh, what? I didn't watch this one in a while. It was about how dreadlocks are scary. It was that video. So it's funny because in there, I didn't watch the whole thing right now, but I did see myself talking about normal, healthy people, right? And the range of normal and healthy. Well, what I want to tell you about that is I want to be honest with you guys because I think that I don't want to do harm to people. And sometimes when you're on video and you're looking like with makeup on and all kinds of stuff like that, I don't know if this is the case for everyone, but for myself, like several years ago when I was really, really shy, which I still am, but really shy and really like not sure about people and what's normal, a lot of shame about myself, about like my mental health, and about whether I had a lot of anxiety, social anxiety. And when you have social anxiety, you feel very isolated. And so when you have social anxiety, you're actually pretty normal in the scheme of things, but you feel abnormal and you feel like you're really focused on yourself and your things that your perceived differences with other people. And so I had a lot of that, and I had, very stressful situation. I was in school for a scientific science degree that I was really feeling out of my element. I had to try really hard to do a good job in it. And so it was really important. There was a lot riding on it. And I didn't have the social skills to be around other people in my program in a way that would have helped me to feel better. But they were learning things a lot faster than me, really smart. Okay, you have to be really smart to get in this program I was in. And I am smart, but I didn't know at the time for sure that I had ADHD. And I didn't have any treatment for it. I didn't have a for sure diagnosis. I really didn't have the information about what ADHD brains function like. And so here I was having social anxiety and ADHD, which, by the way, social anxiety and ADHD do go hand in hand quite often. People with ADHD, the most common comorbidity or diagnosis that you would have with ADHD as an adult with ADHD is anxiety disorder. And the most common anxiety disorder is social anxiety disorder. Didn't know that, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts in the last 3 years so I could help other people that have ADHD that I work with. And so I listen to a lot of podcasts, and the podcasts are a lot of times by other professionals that have found out that they have ADHD too. So it's kind of like with chemical dependency, if you have like alcoholism or other drug addictions, a lot of people, basically, if you're going to be in the helping profession with people with chemical dependency or alcoholism, most often you kind of have to, it's like a prerequisite, you have to be in recovery yourself. Well, that's not always the case with the mental health profession, that in order to get in the mental health profession, you have to disclose that you're in recovery yourself from mental health diagnoses, right? So a lot of people go into mental health, they're drawn into it, and they may or may not know what all their diagnoses are. They may think, oh, I have pretty sensitive, came from a family, I have an interest in this, but maybe don't always know that they have ADHD, right? Until they start finding out about it and learning about it. And in the process of that, they might realize, oh my goodness, here I am, I have ADHD. But the good thing about finding out that you have it, if you're in the helping profession, I'm not going to say ADHD is a gift, because I am not on that bandwagon at all. I don't see it as a gift. I think it as we are really smart and are creative despite our struggles with ADHD, that's where I'm on. That's what I'm on right here. So I'm not going to say that it's an awesome thing to have ADHD. I'm going to say that we learn to be able to function despite our ADHD, and that makes us creative. So I was saying about like normal range, healthy adults in that video about it's scary to have dreadlocks. And I know most of my friends and most of my people, and even maybe some of my viewers, a lot of my viewers might have issues, and they're like, well, am I normal range or not? Yes, you probably are, actually. What I would consider normal range too. Okay, so it took me a long time to figure out what normal range was for myself, because here I am in the helping profession, and then going to school for an even higher level of the helping profession, and being ashamed, and also not knowing I had ADHD at the time. So not knowing where my weirdness was coming from, all my quirkiness, like I can't study with other people, but I love people, and like, why? And I'm like annoyed, irritated, stressed out, exhausted at the end of the day, mentally, need to be alone, but don't want to be alone because I love people. So it just didn't make sense to me. So I couldn't concentrate with other people and talking, and they were like all like going faster than me. My brain wasn't going fast enough to keep up with the focus that they were doing when they were studying together, because these people in my program were really smart. Okay, you have to be really smart to be in this program that I went to school for my master's degree, and I did get into it just fine, but I couldn't study with the other people that I wanted to study with. And then it was really hard to be like secure, feeling secure. There's a lot of insecurity about like, oh, have I studied enough? I'm not sure. I can't try it out with other people, because I found it hard to study with other people, even though I did really well with that with my undergraduate degree in anatomy and physiology, biology type prerequisites. I really learned that studying with other people and quizzing each other was really good for me and really helped me learn. It was interactive. Interactive learning helped me. But I didn't find people in my graduate degree, in my program, that I could study with. And I was trying really hard to do that, because I felt like it was like sink or swim, or swim, sink or swim. So I didn't know I had ADHD. I always had a sense that I did for like at least 10 years before that, but I didn't understand how the ADHD brain functions in terms of an emotion. I really didn't understand how much emotion was tied to ADHD. And now we're finally getting some really good books on it, and they're coming out and people are studying it, emotional regulation and how it's related to ADHD, not just personality disorders. So it doesn't mean you have a personality disorder necessarily if you have trouble with emotional regulation. And that was really cool for me to find out. That's very validating. Not like it's bad to have a personality disorder. I mean, I have a lot of people that I know that have it, but it's hard to have one. Even they will say, "Oh my goodness, it's so hard." And it's very stigmatizing. It's almost more stigmatizing than depression. In fact, I believe it probably is more stigmatizing than depression. And it's hard to also know how you come across other people. You want to relate to people, and you want to know, well, how is this regarding their experience? You don't know how different your experience is from the people that you like or are relating to or trying to make friends with. So I don't know, when you get bogged down in the stigma or the shame about things and like being unsure of yourself, then sometimes you isolate. Okay, that's bad. That's really unhealthy, but unfortunately it's the way that we learn to cope when we don't know like what we're like in compared to other people. So I was talking about normal range healthy people. Well, I think that my idea of normal range healthy people is maybe more broad than some people. I have a lot of experiences with people, and I have a lot of experience with myself, not knowing if I'm normal. And I am calling myself normal because what else can I do? You know, I'm not just like everyone else, but just having ADHD, your brain works differently than everyone else. So I still think that makes you normal, right? So I think normal people are people that I like, I don't know, get along with, or even boring people, really. I mean, that's the thing about being normal, is sometimes it's boring. So I think the idea of being normal and healthy range is really, who knows what you think of that, what you think that is. But I did want to address that. So, as usual, I don't know what this video was going to be about until I started talking. I prepare for things. I really do. I prepared to show you other things. And then I started talking about ADHD and being normal and how it relates to social anxiety. I listened to the 2 segments I just did, and I wanted to sort of clarify something. When I said that anxiety disorders are the most common comorbidity. I really hate the way that sounds because it sounds like morbid, like bad. But it's called comorbidity, which means that you have more than one thing at the same time. So most common comorbidity group of comorbidities with ADHD in adults is anxiety disorders. That's a group of disorders, right? Anxiety disorders is a group of disorders. Most common anxiety disorder to be comorbid with ADHD is social anxiety disorder. So it's not like social anxiety disorder is the most common anxiety disorder, period, in all people. It's that social anxiety disorder is the most common disorder to be with ADHD in adults. And I have so many ideas about why that might be true, because the thing I like the most, the thing that really hooked me when it came to science and learning about science, which I'm not a sciencey person, and I don't think of myself as liking science. So the way that I learned that I really get motivated by science and learning about it is I enjoy learning how things work. That's really exciting to me. So once I finally figured out what motivates me about science and why I might like it, because I needed to learn it in order to be able to help people better. So I had to figure out how to get myself to be really good at science so I could help people better in a higher level. So the way that I think of it is, okay, so I work with people in mental health. And usually ADHD isn't thought of as necessarily so much a mental health diagnosis. It's actually under the group of diagnoses in the DSM called developmental and neurodevelopmental disorders. So you're more likely to be taught about ADHD if you're studying kids and development in a non-psychological area, then you, like a pediatrician, for instance, you're more likely to learn about ADHD there than you are in a psychiatric profession. But guess what? People come to the psychiatric profession when they have ADHD but don't know it or think they might, and they have other things. As adults, you usually come with other things because you weren't diagnosed as a kid, most likely, unless you were the very typical, what we think of as stereotype ADHD person, usually boy, usually hyperactive, usually getting in trouble, behavioral problems, impulse issues with controlling their impulses, bouncing off the walls, whatever. Stereotypical. It's not how people with ADHD really look. I mean, some of them do, but some of them, actually most of them are a different style, and they have hyperactivity, but it's just not outward, especially by the time they get older, it's not outward. And in girls, it looks different even when they're kids usually. So girls might be hyperactive and they might express it, but the expression of it, even if it's outward, might be promiscuity, okay? It might also be like oppositional behavior, like argumentative, louder voice. Speaking of louder voice, especially when they're emotional about something or trying to convince someone of something. Lots of different things that a girl with ADHD would look like that a boy might not look like. And also things that a girl might get a sense from other people that she's not being accepted, even by her parents, when she's ADHD. And so she's either getting really involved in something, and so she's talking louder as the more she gets involved in it and tries to concentrate on it, or just is thinking about that instead of thinking about her tone of voice. So I've got a book here that I want to recommend to you highly. It's called Understanding Girls with ADHD, AD/DHD. Okay, so the reason we use the word ADHD all the time is because instead of ADD and ADHD is because this is why. For one, in the DSM, Diagnostic Statistical Manual, it's only called ADHD, and then there are different subtypes. There's combined type, and then there's primarily hyperactive type, and there's primarily inattentive type. Well, this is what a lot of us think here about ADHD. The reason we call it ADHD, even if you think of yourself as a more inattentive type, meaning more sleepy, more like trouble focusing, but not so much hyperactive. Well, because even there's different ratios of it, but basically, even if you're inattentive type, which means you have trouble paying attention, but they all do. But you don't think you have extra energy. Well, probably in your brain you do. You're probably hyperactive in your brain. And sometimes you've got nervous energy, and like you might be like having habits of like chewing your nails or chewing the skin around your nails, right? So these little nervous habits people have, and girls are more likely to have those earlier on when they're kids, because they pick up on social cues a lot more usually than boys at that age. And so they know it's not going to be acceptable for them to be standing on top of their desk and taking nosedives in classrooms, but they've already picked up on that's not probably going to be okay just by watching other people doing things and getting in trouble and stuff. So they take it out on themselves. But also they have hyperactive brains. So yeah, it's not an attention deficit. It's a problem with not being able to control what you pay your attention to. And so a difficulty in being consistent with your attention and your focus, and a difficulty with being able to control your attention or your focus. That's the problem with ADHD. That's what the problem is. It's not that you can't read a book for 5 hours straight if you're really interested in it. It's that you can't stop yourself from doing that and change tasks to something else that you're supposed to do, or you'll get in trouble because you really need to do that other thing too. All right, so the second book that I really want to show to you is this one by Thomas Brown. He's a PhD. I believe he's also a doctor. Maybe he can't prescribe medications if he's only a PhD, but the book is called Smart But Stuck: Emotions in Teens and Adults with ADHD. I love it. I love it because Thomas Brown is one of the very few people that are a professional in this field that probably does not have ADHD. Ari Tuckman is the other one, and he's definitely not a medical doctor. He's a PhD doctor, psychologist in Pennsylvania. So Ari Tuckman does some podcasts, really short ones on his website, and you might be able to find him on podcast app. But Thomas Brown is a professional who also most likely does not have ADHD. This book came out just a couple years ago, Smart But Stuck: Emotions. Okay, so I love it because people are starting to talk about emotions and ADHD. And I love that because emotions, psychology, that's my interest. And that's where I started to get my passion for learning about ADHD and helping people with their ADHD. Once I learned how it affects your emotions and what I got some insight on, when I got insight on like how these people with ADHD feel like about themselves, their self-concept, and the things they struggle with, and why so many of them have developed depression and anxiety by the time they're adults, if they haven't been diagnosed before and they don't understand, they haven't been taught about how to understand how their brain works, how to understand why they are worried about social interactions, why they're afraid of going to a party where their brain will go blank. Maybe they can't depend on their brain to make social interactions, small talk, and why they can't, why they have a hard time even not getting bored making small talk in situations like that. So emotions is where I get really excited about ADHD. Okay, there's another book that I have, and I didn't pull it out. I just thought of it when I was talking to you just now. It is called Scattered, or Scattered Minds. It's a two different names, but it's the same book, and it was published in Canada and also in the United States. You can find it on Amazon as well. Scattered or Scattered Minds, and it's by Gabor Mate, Gabormate. That's the author. And that book is so different from any other book I've ever read about ADHD. It talks about the trauma combination of the more likely, people that have ADHD are more likely to be traumatized by situations in their childhood. And they're more sensitive in certain ways, that they are more likely to be traumatized by the same situations that maybe didn't end up with a PTSD in an adulthood, the same situation possibly, because their emotions are just so raw, kind of. I don't know. So this other book by Gabor Mate called Scattered changed my thoughts about ADHD completely. And that was the very first book on ADHD that I read. And I just couldn't believe it was about ADHD. It was just amazing. So I really highly recommend it. It's an older book. It's at least 15 years old. It's probably 2000, around that. And this is an older book as well. This one about understanding girls with ADHD. There's another book by some of these same authors right here about understanding, or about women with ADHD. I don't have that one here right at this moment, but that's also a very, very good book. In fact, I would recommend that more for you if you're an adult. But this one's great if you want to think about your childhood, make sense of it. This was a really kind of a simple book that helps you to make sense of some of the childhood characteristics of personalities that you see if maybe in yourself, if you're a woman, when you were a girl. And then this one I love, even though I haven't read the entire thing yet, but this one's really good because I've seen this guy's podcasts and some of his talks on YouTube, and he understands the really important parts about ADHD that people don't understand yet very well widely, which this is a really new field. This ADHD, adult ADHD field, it's really new. And that's why it's really hard to find a really, really good professional who can diagnose you properly in your town or city, and also to get a proper diagnosis and get treatment for it, because it's not just simple to treat it. You have to understand it. And also therapy. Therapy is very important, and people knowing how to do therapy for people with ADHD, because it's different than doing therapy for people with other things. Because you're not going to be able to, mindfulness works great, but you can't do it. It's really hard to focus on mindfulness. So how do you do that without making the person feel bad because they're not able to focus and do the things with you? If you don't have ADHD, you don't understand why they can't do it. So, anyway, that's what I want to share with you. This is getting way too long, and I didn't expect it to be all about ADHD, but it ended up being, it's kind of like a painting. You know, you start it somewhere, and then you realize, gosh, that wasn't even as important as the thing that I ended up talking about or making the painting about. So that's what I had to share with you guys. I hope that this helps people. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's going to, because most people don't really understand about ADHD, and I know that everybody says that it's overdiagnosed, and I'm not 100% sure about that. I just think that people are becoming very, very startled by how many people have it. So I don't know about the overdiagnosis thing. I really see it being underdiagnosed. However, it's really hard because you really do need to, you can't just take a medicine like a stimulant. You need to do therapy. You need to teach someone how to understand how they work, because otherwise they're just not going to understand why they can't perform just like everyone else, because you'll never be able to perform just like everyone else because you aren't just like everyone else. So you have to learn that, and therapy is really important with someone who understands it. Your brain will never be just like anyone else, no matter what medications you take. Okay, you can't fix it. It's a structural situation, and the way that the neurons fire is just really different. We can't figure it out, but the stimulants help. But the stimulants don't take away the ADHD. You will still need to learn how your brain works, and the stimulants will help you to function better to the capacity that you feel like you can control better. But you still won't be able to function as quickly as you want to, because people with ADHD aren't just slow. They're fast. They're way fast. They're faster than fast. They jump over steps that they should be doing too. So it's like they're too fast for everyone else, but they're also too slow in other ways. And it's just really hard. It's a self-esteem issue. Biggest thing, self-esteem, self-concept. So people with ADHD, especially girls, especially women with ADHD, have really poor self-esteem. And it's really hard because they might become kind of narcissistic just to make up for it, because they're just like, sort of like, they know they're pretty smart, but they just don't understand why no one else really thinks so. Or they also sort of don't think so. So you cover it up with narcissism and boisterousness. And then you don't understand why people reject you, because you're a little bit too much for them. You're too intense. And that's kind of sad too, because intensity is cool and it's great. And it's great to be a girl who's intense and passionate, and you just got to figure it out. You got to figure out how you might be a little too much for people, but try not to feel bad about yourself for that. And try not to blame other people too much for it either, because it's not just their problem. It's not just your problem. It's kind of like a mismatch of figuring out neurotypes with people. The other thing I have to tell you, really important before I let you go, is that people with ADHD they're not all the same. In fact, you can get two people together in a marriage with ADHD and they both have totally different kinds of ADHD, not even just like inattentive and hyperactive, not just those kinds, but like ADHD. If you've met two people with ADHD, you've met two people with ADHD. That's the common, like that's this little, like, I don't know, special little funny little quote that we have here that I've heard. So if you want to learn more about ADHD, you can look at these two books I showed you. You can also go to the podcast app on your iPhone and listen to, and like search under search terms ADHD. Look at some of those and see if any of them seem interesting to you. Attitude Magazine has a website and they do really long podcasts, kind of not that great for ADHD people, you know what I'm saying? But there are shorter ones that, not by Attitude Magazine, but even though that's a good website and resource, but if those are too long for you to get through, there are some other ones that are really good that are on the podcast app that I would recommend, like Tara McGillicuddy's, she has one, McGillicuddy. That's a kind of a weird last name, so you can look for her. She has a really loud voice, and so she doesn't have it really matched up really well with her people she's interviewing. But other than that, she's great. She's an ADHD coach. And then there's, there are a few others. Gosh, Kenny Handelman, Kenny. It's a man. Handelman, Handelman. He is really great. He's Canadian. I believe he's from Ontario or Toronto. I don't know. Like has one of those like Canadian sounding voices. Very sweet guy. Wonderful. He is a pediatrician, child psychiatrist who found out as an adult that he had ADHD. After he'd been working with kids with ADHD for like 7 or 8 years, finally figured out that he had it. And he is just great. He's got some podcasts on the podcast app that I highly recommend. They're kind of short and he's really down to earth, which I love. So that's another one. So you guys, I'm looking forward to the comments. I'm looking forward to you guys weighing in on this. And I don't think everybody could possibly have ADHD, but there are a lot of people that have it. A lot of really awesome, interesting people that have it. And it's really great to find out that you have it and then start thinking, working your way backwards. Oh my goodness, what all diagnoses did I think I have that I really probably might not have because I actually have ADHD that accounts for like depression, anxiety. You could have both. You could have multiple things. That's not against, that's actually pretty common to have more than one thing at this point as an adult, but you might. Who knows? Maybe your anxiety and depression would be better if your ADHD were treated. That would be great, wouldn't it? I think that'd be great. All right. Well, it's time to say goodbye again. I love you guys and thank you so much for listening. I'm excited to find out what you guys think of this and I'm hoping that you guys enjoy it, even if you don't have ADHD. And that's all. All right. Take care. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.